everyone. Cujo here. Exciting times. You may realize that this hangar environment is different than what I usually took videos from, or what I have been the last few years. And it's exciting because this is my hangar. So I recently purchased this hangar at Aurora Airport, here Aurora Municipal. And I also purchased my very own plane. So I'm very proud to say this is my airplane right here, 78 Yankee. It's a 1991 F-33A Bonanza. And I'm loving it, I have to say. It's one of the best things I've done. I've had it now for about a month, and I've got, I don't know, probably about 16 hours or so in it so far. I thought that we'll do a video to kind of introduce the plane, because that's how I started. My first video was introducing my Aero that I had a partnership in. So we'll do a little introductory video on the Bonanza, and I thought I would talk about the process that I had to buy this plane. So, the process. Now, I know I was frustrated when I was ready to buy a plane. Every video I would look up on YouTube was, how to buy a plane, how to purchase your plane, whatever. And I would look at those videos, and I think all of them basically spent the majority of the video talking about defining your mission. And that's important. I'm not going to say it's not important to define your mission. Clearly you have to define your mission. But what I was looking for when I was about to start spending big money and scouring the country for a plane, I wanted to know what the process of purchase is. Okay, I know what plane I want. I've defined my mission. Now what? And the videos didn't really help me out. So I'm going to do kind of a top-level video on the process post-mission definition. Okay? So after I decided that a 4-seat Bonanza was something that would make sense for me at this time. If you guys want me to do a how I defined my mission video and what went into that, let me know. I could do that. But like I said, I wanted to kind of get to it for those of you who want to buy a plane and just have never done it before, because that's where I was. I'd never bought a plane before. So I was just confused and wondering what needed to happen. So, okay, I decided I wanted a 4-seat Bonanza. That seemed to be appropriate at this point in time for my mission. So, what do? I'm going to tell you what you probably should do if you're at that point where you're ready to jump in. You've decided what plane you want, you're ready to go. This isn't necessarily exactly how it lined up for me. It was a little bit unique, I think, my situation. But first things first, if you're ready to go, get pre-approved. If you're going to do financing. Some people don't want to do financing. I'll say this. I guess I didn't need to do financing, but money is cheap right now, and that's why the market is so crazy. So the way I look at it is, I'm buying a 30-year-old plane in this case. I was looking at some 40 plus. You don't know what's going to happen. So I figured, why not keep my liquid assets on hand for some period of time, use the bank's money, and get the plane. And then if I find out a wing has to fall off or something, and all of a sudden I'm in it for a bunch of money, I didn't just spend my whole savings just to acquire the plane. So that's kind of what I thought. I also thought, as a first-time plane buyer, having the bank be there walking through the purchase with me might be helpful, because obviously the bank cares about getting their money back and having an asset to secure it. So those are things I considered. But anyways, if you're going to do financing, get pre-approved. Rates, pretty good. I got stuff from 3.6 and change to 5 or almost 5%, depending on who I looked at. 20 years, interest, you can prepay without any penalty. It was good term, 20% down payment, I think, typically on something like this. And, that's crazy. I was blown away. That's like almost mortgage rates for a fully depreciated 30-year-old plane. But, get that documentation, get that submitted, okay? I didn't think it was that difficult. If you've prepared your documentation for your tax accountant before or recently refied your mortgage or something like that, you should have most of the documentation readily available. That's what I did. You give them, you know, your W-2s, your pay stubs, your bank account statements, and investment statements, that kind of thing. Takes about 4 days or so, 3 or 4 days, something like that. And like I said, it was really relatively painless. So that's a pre-approval, and I think they last for like 90 days usually. So that's if you're ready to go, right? In my case, this plane kind of came to me, so I had the plane in mind when I went to the bank, but that shouldn't matter, same process. Okay, so you got your financing in hand if you're going to use financing. If you're just going to pay with a check, then great, that saves you a step. But if you have that ready to go, especially in this hot market, that's a good thing to do. I used Airfleet Capital, but I checked with a bunch of different banks as well. And like I said, you can look them up online. There's a bunch. I even went through AOPA for what they had at one point, but they had a high rate, so I ended up just going with Airfleet. So look into that. The next thing is look for your plane. Now, for this one thing you might want to consider, and this is what worked for me in the end, is join a type club or go to the forums, okay? That's a good way to find quality planes, because if people have been on the forums or active on the forums and the type clubs, that means they probably care about the plane quite a bit, and they're probably going to be well taken care of, and you can maybe get early dibs on one before it hits just Trade-A-Plane or something. I was looking at Trade-A-Plane and the prices were nuts, and these weren't even very nice looking planes. So I was pretty discouraged. But I was on Beach Talk talking about, you know, how I was looking for something like this, and someone actually messaged me. Look, I knew he was selling this plane, and you know, it worked out really well. So do type clubs, forums, search Trade-A-Plane, controller, Barnstormers, you know, whatever it is that you know, your site of choice, and find a plane. Okay, you find the plane, go through the logbooks, call them up, ask them questions. Unfortunately, I found a lot of people didn't know a lot. Some did, but that was a little discouraging. So get copies of the logbooks. You know, that will be your first opportunity to determine if there's something weird happened to the plane, or would it have been, you know, non-annualed for 5 years, so it was sitting somewhere or something like that, or if it went off a runway into a snowbank and had the whole right side replaced or something. You know, logbooks are good for that. See what kind of maintenance it's had recently. You know, this one had the landing gear motor overhauled, and the prop was overhauled, and it had a bunch of things that had been recently overhauled in the last few years, and so that's really good, because that's stuff I don't have to do. So you could get a good feel from talking to the owner and going through the logbook. So that's got to be number one, and spend some time and go through it in detail. It's important. If that all looks good to you on whatever plane you're looking at, try to go see it. I know that it's difficult. This plane was in Texas. I'm in Chicago, so at first I didn't go see it just because it's logistically a little difficult. But once we got a little further down the process, in my case, I did make a trip down there and went for a flight in it, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, this thing it's really clean airplane. It's really in good shape, and we went flying and it was smooth. So, but go see it, right? Because you know, you're spending a lot of money. It's a big decision, and you know, nothing substitutes getting eyeballs on it. So. And meet the owner. You know, you'll have an opportunity to kind of meet the owner, and you can get a feel for how it's been treated, and you know, how they care about it, and what you're going to be able to do negotiation-wise. So that is an important step. And if you're serious, get the plane ticket, go see it. I actually went down and back in one day, but it was worth it. Okay, now the important one, the negotiation and the purchase agreement. Now what I found, and this was a big source of stress in my life when I was going through this process, is everything hinges off of the purchase agreement, okay? I didn't quite understand that. I knew there should be a purchase agreement. I didn't quite understand that everything kind of hinged off of that. The escrow company needs that. The bank needs that. Um, the FAA obviously needs that. You know, if you have to register, I have to register in Illinois. They needed that. You know, everything comes off the purchase agreement, and that's really key. It also complicated my life because the seller wasn't a fan of contracts, so that made things a little bit dicey. But the purchase agreement is key. So there's examples on AOPA. There's examples you could just Google, and you could Google it. There's examples of different pre-purchase agreements. But it's important. The key things you need: buyer, seller, agreed upon price, the aircraft information, tail number, serial number. Time frames are good. Okay, so if you're going to a deposit, okay, most times there's a deposit involved. So spelling out what happens with that deposit in different situations and the timing of it. You know, if you're going to have a pre-purchase done on some date, and then, you know, have a week to decide on whether or not you're going to buy it or not, or something like that. Spell out those details, time frames, inspection, deposit, location, if it's going to be in a different location. There's some reasons why you might want to do that, which I found out about. I talked to someone who was purchasing a plane in Arkansas, but apparently there are some strange sales tax rules in Arkansas for aircraft, so he actually had it inspected in Missouri, and then picked it up in Missouri, or something like that. I don't know. I heard that story. So, and that's another thing, I guess, good tip, is look up tax legislation and rules and everything, depending on where you are, where you're buying it, and where you're having it inspected. So that's the key. Or the purchase inspection. The bill of sale is kind of the simplified version of that. Once you get further down the line, or a little further down the line, where it has buyer, seller, price, tail number. But the purchase inspection is key. Okay, so hopefully you get to that point where everything's in line. You like the plane. You've seen the plane. You have a purchase agreement in place, signed by the buyer and the seller, with all the rules for what's going to happen, including if you're going to have a pre-buy, which I highly recommend. Okay, so you get that. Once you have that, really the process should be pretty smooth. Okay, you know, by then you should be pre-approved, so you're getting you can get the financing going. Now you have a tail number, so you can give them that if you're pre-approved. They can start working that because they're gonna, and then get the escrow company. Okay, escrow, I used Aerospace. There's a bunch of them in Oklahoma City. They're, I think, one of the biggest. Basically, it's pretty easy. You email. It was kind of strange, actually. You email them with the info. They set up an account, an escrow account. Send you wire information for the money. You give them the bank information. If you have a bank, they'll start talking to the bank. They'll start. You give them the seller information. They'll start talking to them. They'll start collecting documents. Okay, it's real weird. They can't do it all electronically in this day and age. So there's some faxing and snail mail, and even some notarized documents sometimes needed, which was a little weird, but I wasn't quite ready for that. But they'll be collecting all this documentation, okay? And again, they're going to want the purchase agreement right up front. To open the escrow, they need a purchase agreement that has the seller information, the plane, and everything else. So there you go, purchase agreement. Get the escrow going. They're going to start collecting the documentation. They'll hit up the seller independently for what they need from them. They'll probably want a bill of sale and everything. They'll talk to you about what they need from you, and they'll talk to the bank, if you have a bank, about the documentation, because the bank has to fill out the FAA registration forms. Okay, and then another big thing that we have not covered yet is the insurance. Okay, insurance is crazy right now. I talked to 5 or 6 different insurance companies, something like that. Some didn't even call me back, so that's why I lose track how many. For this, so I was surprised, because I have my instrument rating now, as you guys know. I had 130 some odd hours of complex time for my Aero partnership primarily. Just under 400 hours total. So, you know, not super senior experienced pilot, but you know, I kind of checked the boxes. I thought I did not have much beach time at all. I had a couple hours in a G36. That's pretty much it. So when I called the insurance company and they found that out, it wasn't pretty. I got 2 quotes, I think, that were like 53 or 5,600, well into the 5,000 range, which I found to be crazy. Not like a novice. So, and I haven't ever had an incident or anything. Avemco had the best rate for me, and it was low 4,000, which was still crazy. But and that's with getting my instrument rating and discounts for training this past year and things like that. They claim that with some time in it, it'll come down quite a bit. I hope so. It seems crazy to me with an instrument rating and everything, but that is what that is. So insurance is key. Shop around. I had people recommend Falcon. I had people recommend just going through AOPA. Avemco was kind of their own thing. Assured. I actually had a rental policy with Assured for my instrument work, so I figured maybe they'd cut me a deal. No. It's crazy right now. I heard twins are like 10 grand and up. So start getting that quoted up once you get the plane figured out, because that could be a bit of an adventure. It's easy-ish once you figure out who you're going to go with. You give them the info, they send a certification. Sometimes the bank needs things a certain way, so there's some back and forth. Basically, the process is you're like Grand Central Station, okay? You're talking to the bank, the insurance company, the escrow company, the seller. Luckily I didn't have to talk directly to the FAA. I did have to talk to Illinois because you have to register here and everything. So, and you're just fielding calls. Oh, and the shop. If you should do a pre-purchase inspection, which I did at a very reputable beach shop. It ain't cheap, but it could save you so much more money down the road. Definitely, I would recommend that. But you're talking to them. It's a real. You kind of feel like you're the operator, right? And you're community. That's what I found to be the most hectic part of it, I guess. All in all, looking back on it, it's not a difficult process, but it takes time and effort, and you've got to communicate with all these people. So hopefully that gives you a good top level. Once all of that paperwork is into the escrow company and the financing is cleared for using financing, on the paperwork you had a closing date. It gets to be that closing date, and I'm assuming the bank has told you everything's clear. They did, for me, a couple days ahead of time. As soon as the morning comes for that closing date, then you get an email from the escrow company saying, do you want to disperse funds, basically. And if everything's good, you give them a thumbs up on email, and before you know it, they send you copies of what they sent to the FAA, and they'll put the money in that you wired to them in the escrow. They'll send that to the seller, and the bank will fund it. The bank's funding a piece of it, and it all kind of comes together that morning, and it's yours. Another thing I didn't know is, did I have to be down by the plane when we closed? Because I was in Chicago, the plane is in Texas. No, I closed on a Wednesday, I think it was. It was midweek, and Wednesday or Thursday, and then I flew down to Houston, which is where it got inspected, on Friday, and went for a test flight because we got in kind of midday Friday. Everything looked good, and then all day Saturday flew it back, which did it on under 5 hours. It's a beautiful plane. Can't say enough about it. The Bonanza thing was, I didn't think I was going to have a Bonanza a year ago, probably, but this kind of came together, and love it. They're fantastic planes. Hopefully that helped you with at least the basics of the process. I know there's a lot of details that people have questions on, so I'd say go ahead and ping me in the comments if you have some more specific questions, because I know I was stressed going through it. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have help per se. I will say this, another good thing though, you get involved in the type club, okay, or the forums. And for me, I got in with not only Beach Talk, but the American Bonanza Society. So for those of you looking at YouTube videos, you might know Martin Pauly. Okay, so Martin Pauly, funny story, actually sold me my share of my Arrow in Iowa when he bought his Bonanza years back. And so, I've kept in touch a little bit with Martin. And, he's big, if you guys know, in the American Bonanza Society. So I shot him a note when this started coming together, and he got me in touch with some pretty key people in the American Bonanza Society, who really helped. And I had questions. They were stupid questions, probably, but they helped me out a lot, and it was really helpful to have somebody to bounce questions off of. Anyway, go ahead and send me comments. Hopefully you found this helpful, and I'll try to put some references in the video. And I love my plane.